This is my story.
Two men were charged today in connection with missing money.
Robert Carl Prohl was formerly the senior IT director here at the Port Authority. Prohl is charged with 3 theft felonies, accused of stealing more than $200,000 of cash, and bail has been set at $1,350,000.
I was working in the public sector. I had a very senior management position. Even though I had the title that I thought was prestigious enough, and I had the salary that was more than enough to pay for anything I wanted, it wasn't enough for me. There was always something else to chase. There was always the next thing. I thought very arrogantly that I am smarter than anyone else here. I mean, let's be really blunt about it. I stole. I falsified POs, ordered things that we didn't need but that we had budget for, and then I sold them. They caught on, they fired me, and nothing happened. I remember making all these deals with God. If he would just get me out of this, then I would do whatever he wanted. And I got a call from the DA saying, I would like to talk to you about some of these anomalies we see from your prior employer. And my heart just sank. I shut the door and I wrote my suicide notes. I wrote one to my wife, and I wrote one to my daughter and my son and my mom. And I carried those around with me in a notebook for days. And I'd go home and just go through the motions of, this is my day, and how are you, and what you do at school today, and all the while knowing that I was going to check myself out. In fact, I used to walk around the property with a .44 Magnum, thinking that the cops are going to roll up any minute and I was just going to end it. And then I decided that there was only one thing I feared worse than prison, and that was death. And I threw them away. But that was small comfort, because I still felt completely out of control. That any minute now, everything was going to come crashing down. And I remember sitting, talking with Cliff. I had this beautiful design of how everything would work. I said, we're going to get probation, so we'll almost hit rock bottom, but we'll pull out and everything will be okay. And Cliff asked me, well, what if it's not enough? What if it's just you and God? Are you going to be good enough with you when it's just the two of you? They filed charges, and my whole world collapsed at that point. Before the charges were filed, I had been trying to find my way back to God. I've been trying to find a path back to faith, because my wife had started going to the Loft. And I remember talking about, how do I stand up in court and say, yes, I did this, while I'm still trying to run a small group or to find my way back to Jesus? Can one coexist with the other? On the one hand, I'm a criminal and I've done these horrible things. And on the other hand, you're telling me that all men are forgiven. I couldn't, in my mind, put those two together. So I pled guilty. We didn't get what we wanted. We got sentenced to 21 years in prison. And you don't get any time to say goodbye or to give a hug or to tell your daughter that you're sorry. They take you right then. And you go out through the side door and you begin your descent into hell then. Situation at home was deteriorating, and my wife was beginning to talk about recovering, rebuilding without me. And on November 22nd, I was served with the divorce decree. it finally all became real and that she was going to leave me, and I lost it. I bundled up my blanket and stuffed it up in the corner, put my head in that, and I screamed and I cried. And I didn't get out of that rack for 2 days. That's when I finally realized that I was totally alone. And that's when I hit rock bottom. And it was at that point I started really praying. It was too much. The pain was too much. The guilt, the feeling worthless. I couldn't handle it. I didn't want to handle it anymore. So I prayed that God would take it away and just give me what I could deal with. I had this prayer I made up that I am a blank sheet of paper. You write on me. I'm a clean slate. Do with me what you will. And I welcome that. I want that. I still had this anger towards my wife. And so I went back and read all of these emails from her and could finally pick out the love in them. She felt alone. And that's when I first started thinking for someone other than me. First started thinking that I have to think about what's important for the family here and what is going to affect them long term, because I had faith that no matter what, if I was going to be in prison for 6 months or 6 years, he was going to be there for me, and that I could come out and be okay because God was going to be there. She put the divorce on hold and ultimately canceled it. And she said, I'll be here if it's a year, I'll be here if it's a month, I'll be here if it's 3 years. Met with my lawyer. She said, I want to hear from you why we're not pursuing probation. And I told her, well, financially it's almost impossible. We know it's going to put the family in a bad situation, so I'm fine with not going after it. I'm fine with staying in and making parole. That's what I thought God wanted me to do. And she said, well, all of that has changed. Monday came and we had the hearing, and the judge let me go. Around 11 o'clock, then my wife and I are sitting in a Denny's having breakfast. And I'm telling the waiter, yeah, I just got out of prison. And the waiter had done time too, so got a free appetizer out of that. And then we went and picked up my son that afternoon, and I surprised him at school. We just embraced for a couple of minutes. I told him, I'm home. I'm home. Baby Christian named Patrick asked me when I was in county waiting for the probation hearing. He had his little Gideon Bible they gave you in prison, which is about that big, and he said, well, how do you read this? Pretty soon I was telling him my story about how I had found God and how he could find God too. And I was filled with this feeling of, this is what you can do. You've had this little impact on someone's life for the positive, and that was amazing. I thought I had everything, house, car, money, but in reality, I had nothing. All of that can be lost. The only thing that you can really keep when it's just you alone in the darkness is a relationship with Jesus. It's hard sometimes letting go completely and trusting completely, but I think he's okay with that too. And one of the things the judge asked me is, well, what are you going to do with this when you get out? And I told her I had to do something to give back. I had to make a difference. I don't know what I'm called to do, but I know I'm called to do something. Somewhere there's someone that is facing charges or looking down that dark hole and doesn't know what to do. I want to help with that.